Most outreach today is dead on arrival. Not because people are lazy, not because they don't care, because it all sounds the same. The same language, it's the same energy, same boring approach that buyers have heard 100 times before. The people who stand out are the ones who create wonder. They make you feel something, they make you curious, they make you remember them long after the message is over. If you're looking for a way to break out of the sea of sameness and show up differently, stay tuned.
Welcome to Staffing Made Simple, a podcast series powered by Simple VMS.
Welcome back to Staffing Made Simple. I'm Casey Wagonfield, Senior Sales Executive here at Simple VMS. Brought to you by, as always, Simple VMS, the most vendor-friendly VMS in the market. This is a show where we bring you actionable tips, takeaways that you can use right away, whether it's in recruiting, sales, everything staffing related. And today, we're going to be talking about something I think the staffing industry really needs badly. Too many of these agencies sound exactly the same. It's the same cold email, it's the same voicemail, the same follow-up, the same we've got talent and great service and we want to be your partner language. And the truth is, when everybody sounds the same, nobody really stands out. And that's why I'm really excited for this conversation, because today our guest is Dale Dupree. He's the founder and CEO of the Sales Rebellion, a sales training and outreach brand built around challenging the status quo and helping people create more human and memorable, curiosity-driven sales experiences. Their whole mission is centered around ideas like creating wonder, serving others, and changing the game, which is exactly why I thought this topic would hit home for our audience. Dale's also known by a lot of people as the copier warrior, which I'm sure he'll explain, a name that comes out of more than a decade of copier sales, where he built a reputation for making traditionally boring sales processes a lot more creative and a lot more human. He's also the creator of Totality. It's a 3-day immersive sales conference in Knoxville, and it's built to be the opposite of the typical stale sit and listen event. It's designed around workshops, community action, and helping salespeople really break out of the ordinary and rethink how they show up in their work. And honestly, it's a message the staffing industry needs to hear. We're going to get into how to stand out, how to be memorable without being gimmicky, and what staffing salespeople can do differently if they want to really cut through that noise. So the original sales rebel himself, Dale, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, what's up, Casey? I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. Maybe you can take us back to how you originally got into sales, and you have a really cool story with your family, but maybe just tell us how you got here, the original story of Dale Dupree.
Yeah, my story is pretty intense, and I do like to start from the beginning to help people understand my origins, which is to really go back to my father founding his business in 1984. My father was an incredible athlete. As a matter of fact, he was scouted by every major university in the United States, from Auburn to LSU to Clemson to UF. I mean, you name it. People came from all over to watch my dad, I should say, tackle people on the football field and potentially to recruit him for their organization slash school so that it could sell him to the NFL at some point and make a lot of money. So my dad actually got injured, and because of that, he lost the majority of his scholarships. But then the one that hung on, it was Carson Newman Bible School, which is now Carson Newman University. So even after all that, he still was set up to go into the NFL, right? But he broke his neck. His whole entire life changed. He drove back to Florida and he got a job selling paper. Within about 2 weeks of selling said paper, he was the number one paper salesman in the region, let alone the company. And they were like, hey, dude, you need to sell copy machines. And that's how it all began. Now in 84, he starts his business, right? Well, in 1985, I was born with toner coursing through my veins because I was born into the copier industry. So copier sales was like family run business. So I started selling for my dad. I sucked at sales for the first year, absolutely terrible, 33% of quota. And the second year, I was closer to like 80%. I was 75, 77%, somewhere in that range of quota. I felt like I had found my stride a little bit better. And in year 3, I broke every freaking record in the book for net new business, for total revenue sales, for used equipment sales. And my father had been in business at that point for 27 years. And a couple of years later, he sold his organization to a group called North American Ops Solutions, which I worked for and took from 8 million to 24 million in 5 years. And it is there that I created the moniker of the copier warrior. I built my personal brand. I stood out among the sea of sameness, as you mentioned earlier. Instead of a sales pitch to people, I became a relationship instead of a transaction to people. I loved every moment of it, even the bad. I took every risk. I put myself on the line daily. I made millions of dollars in the process. and basically set myself up for career ladder advancement. And in the process of advancing, I went to a big corporation, $2 billion organization, broke every record you could possibly imagine there too in that branch. And then I quit and I started my own business. And this is the 7th year since that day in March of this year. So I'm 7 years in as an entrepreneur, running a company called The Sales Rebellion, where we equip people to, like you said earlier, change the game in their sales career based on principles, right? Not just based on this ideology that sales can be better, which is not a bad thought, but ultimately, I think when you root yourself in principles, when you root yourself in meaning and purpose and something that just provides an intrinsic amount of desire to succeed, you change everything for yourself and the people around you as well too. When people can believe for themselves that they're not just making a paycheck, but ultimately that they're doing something that advances communities, the entire societal structures, if you will. And a lot of the times it's done in like very micro perspectives, but it's a big impact if you really think about it. But ultimately, that's how we started the Sales Rebellion. We believe in people over products. We believe in community over commission checks. We believe in experiences over giving somebody a 30-second pitch. And we believe in fellowship over negotiations as our core values as an organization that we teach other people.
I feel like we have a very similar story on how we got into sales because I kind of just got into it one year because it was just like, I need to try something different. I was job hopping. So let's switch topics and talk about AI. I think some people get it mixed up where it's like, yeah, you still have to make phone calls. You still have to send emails. But the idea is to warm it up, right? Make them feel an experience to where when you make that next phone call or you send that next email, now it's a little bit warmer because you've done something to make them feel or experience something and laugh too. Like humility, I think, is half the battle. It's still okay to use Claude to help you with content, right? Use Claude to go find out some unique things about this person that nobody would know. He played in the Red Letter Band in 2000. Be unique, but I think the idea and what I love about what you guys do is not just an email or a call, but you're getting something in their hands, something tangible that they can actually hold and remember.
Yes. I think the experience that we give has to anchor around the idea of what has been the consistent thing inside of a person's existence that they can always lean back into or fall back on as familiar or compassionate or relevant or whatever word we want to use that's buzzy and fun. And an experience, like a tangible experience, is a thing that can make people feel safe. It can take people back to nostalgia. It can cause them to think differently about the message that I'm trying to give them. Where in the digital landscape of things, people are pretty much at this point oversaturated with information, with solicitation, with how you want to look at that and measure it. I mean, it's outlandish. Right now, I have at least 200 emails in my inbox based on the 230 that are in there that I have not gotten to yet. I literally am just going to have to delete these, even if there could potentially be something nice in there. And that's literally from the last 2 days. So that's almost 100 emails a day.
Wow.
So when you think about an experience, I think for people, it's to think less like, oh, well, this is a different medium that people aren't used to, or it's going to break through the noise. Those things are important for sure. But it's more about the genuineness and the compassion of the person sending them to begin with.
No, 100%. And it's funny you say that about they're getting hit in every single angle. But something I always would tell salespeople today, they're going to get a couple text messages. They're going to get 30 emails. They're going to get a couple people hit them up on LinkedIn. They're going to get 5 people call them. And in the staffing industry, especially, you might have staffing companies who specialize in industrial staffing. And they're in, let's just say Pittsburgh. Well, when you're in Pittsburgh and you're doing industrial staffing, generally your prospects are within a 40 to 50 mile radius of Pittsburgh. So you can't really service much outside of that. So your target list is smaller than somebody who's working for a company who's national and can work with anybody. So every touch matters that much more. You might only have 10 of the large clients that you're going after. And if you just sound like everybody else, you're going to ruin that first impression or setting yourself different from everybody else that is messaging them 10 times today.
Yeah, for sure. I just come back to this idea of like, do you want to build relationships with people that are meaningful, intentional, and have purpose behind them? Or are you just trying to transact your thing in the moment through whatever medium you're using? Because in most cases, if you're just being transactional, people are going to look at your existence as a salesperson as convenient for them in their own time. And that's the thing about sales. Everything is about timing. It's the thing in most of our lives that I don't think people really think about. It's when am I getting married? When am I having kids? When am I buying a house? It's all about timing. everything in life is about timing for the most part. When you think about sales, it's always about timing. I'm not in the market for your dumb thing that you're trying to sell me right now. And I don't even want to think about that right now. I don't want to think about it for 3 to 4 more years. So why are you hitting me up about it? I don't care is the thought process. So
Yeah.
salespeople that are out there that are literally that they think their job is to set an appointment with every single person that they reach out to. I remember when I went out and I did like 50, 60 knocks on doors in a day. And my dad made all these jokes about it. And I just remember him saying, like, well, how'd the day go? And terrible. I didn't set any appointments. And he just kind of like shook his head. I was like, well, I didn't ask you to set appointments, man. I asked how'd the day go? And, one of my first lessons and just like the understanding of what is a sales career. How does it benefit others, not just myself? How do I become a servant leader to the people that are within my community? How do I think beyond the transaction? How do I play the long game and commit myself to these things? We just don't teach that anymore, dude. Now it's a cattle farm, like where we're culling herds of 300 reps going through a big organization with training that's 90 days as if somehow like that's a ramp, a proper ramp for people. And then saying at 120 to 200 days, you're fired because you didn't do what we taught you in our culling period, and it's crazy to me. It's absolute madness. All we care about these days is how much money can we make and how fast can we do it. It's unrealistic. And most people that are thinking that way are the people that have already built something in the first place, right? So it's like, well, you have an established business. So of course you're going to keep making money. Of course you're going to have clients that are going to come back and pay more and buy more. We have to think a little bit more intentionally. And if people really want to experience true success, I mean, I didn't make 7 figures as a literal copier sales rep in the SMB space. So I wasn't even an enterprise rep. I didn't make that overnight, dude. It took me 7 years, like legitimately 3 years of working for my father to build what I wanted to a place where it would benefit me. And then within those first 2 years of that reign of terror, as a lot of people call it in the history of the copier warrior, the fruit started to blossom, man. Year 3 was just an absolutely incredible year in that transition period, but it didn't happen in 90 days, man. It didn't happen in a couple of years. It took a lot of time to build, to be patient, to be diligent, and to think beyond just, again, the transaction, because I think that that's what makes it better.
It was funny what you said. It was probably early on in your sales career when it's just like, it was a bad day if I didn't set up any meetings. It's a long game. And you're right. It comes down to timing, especially like these prospects we're going after. What we're going after is, 0.5% of what their job is not even on their mind right now. But next week it might be, right? And it's just catching them at the right time. And I've always been a believer in too, like you said, is treat people how you want to be treated, but don't always ask for withdrawals as salespeople. Everybody's always emailing, asking for something. I want a meeting. I want this. I can do this. I can do that. Be a thought leader. Send them something that they're curious about or something about their business. Not all outreach has to be you asking for something. That's one thing I do like about Josh Braun's approach is detach from the outcome. If you go into every call thinking you need to get a meeting, then it's going to be a miserable day every day because 99% of the time you ain't going to get one. So detach from what the final outcome is.
Yeah, for sure. I go way back with Josh. He truly is one of the most genuine people I've ever been around. And when I read his posts, I think really that's the message he's trying to get across around detachment, that it's more than just this idea of move or a play or a thing that salespeople should do. It's what we should all do, because if not, we'll be filled with pride to the point of arrogance and ignorance that comes attached to that. And I really do think that that's the message that most, especially new salespeople, need to hear. Somebody just sent me this kid that says he adds $10,000 to $50,000 in MRR using LinkedIn, and he calls it All Bound because we got to get a new name for whatever kind of cold calling we're doing. This dude's been like in the business world based on just some simple research. And by the way, I use AI to do that research. And so think about that for a second. Here you have a guy that's been in the business world for less than 2.5 years. He's like 22 years old, telling people that I 2x your monthly income by using automation and robots to do sales. How many times has this person bought something that wasn't a cell phone from the cell phone store? How many times has this person been in a boardroom with a bunch of people that don't care about anything except for the ROI? They don't care about your features, your advantages, your benefits. They care about time. They care about money. It brings me to my point. Like, this idea of detachment is get rid of your opinions, even be open-minded about things. So even as like hardcore as I can be about this idea of creativity and experiential sales, man, I have no problem with a person picking up a phone and making a cold call. I'll sit right there. I'll do it with you. I also believe in this idea of in that detachment, finding risk. I think that that's the real key is here I am detaching from this moment, from this outcome, from this outreach, from whether or not I'm going to get a meeting. But ultimately, like you have to take risk with that. Otherwise, the detachment just puts you into a place of stagnation and lumps you in with the status quo. If you can attach risk to the idea of detachment, I think that's really where the key is for most people that they're missing out. There's a lot of discomfort with risk, and there's a lot of things that dehumanize people in essence because they become scared, essentially. And so, but really, it's as human as it freaking gets.
It's the commission breath, right? That's when people smell it. They can tell when you're all about yourself or when you're about them. You truly want to be a consultant and find issues they didn't know they had that you can solve. And I want to kind of transition into the staffing industry because it is an industry where I think a lot of staffing companies are stuck in their ways or they have blanketed messaging. There's something you said about sending something to somebody that's personalized, that's nice, right? But before we get into that, do you want to just tell listeners about what the crumble letter is, how you created that?
Yeah, for sure. So I sat outside of a medical facility, actually. It was a doctor's office. And I sat in my car for like a solid 20 minutes, no exaggeration there. And it was pretty intense, man. I had this piece of paper that I had crumpled up and put a message in, an introduction to why is this crumpled up. I had a lot of thought that I put in it. But the reason that I was doing it is because I had just left this doctor's office a couple of weeks prior to, which had kind of changed my perspective on sales because of the interaction I had with the person. The person basically told me to like get out of their office. So I was affected by that. And not because my feelings were hurt, but I wondered to myself, like, how can salespeople frustrate a human so much that they would speak to a complete and total stranger this way? That's literally what went through my head. And I came up with some ideas to get past it. And then I implemented this concept of, you know what? Everyone hates sales is literally what happened in that moment. I've been saying this for 15 plus years. When a person says something like, not me, I love sales, and it's usually a salesperson that says it, I usually say, cool, hey, I'm going to set up a time tomorrow night around 7 p.m. while you're sitting down having dinner with your beautiful family. And I'm going to have a solicitor call you about a cruise that's going out in a couple months, and you're going to take the call and you're going to speak with them for however long it takes for them to get through their spiel and to have a conversation about their value proposition. And then I'd like for you to come back and let me know how much you love sales. But that's kind of the point is that even people that think that they love it don't really truly like it in the first place. And so I was like, well, if everybody hates sales, then I'll crumple this letter to be thrown away easier for my reader as the person that doesn't like sales. And that was the idea. I'd walk in and I would say to myself, how can I, in the fewest words possible, relay my message to this person? What's the secret sauce to all of this is really what went through my head. And so I did. I started to become this like heat-seeking missile for minimalism. So I walk in, I have this piece of paper. I said, this is for Dr. So-and-so. And her name was Monica. I'll never forget. And the lady said, okay. And I said, could you please take it to her for me? And she said, sure. And she kind of like opened it as she was saying that. And I didn't have trash cans at this point. I didn't use envelopes, but I wrote on after I crumpled it up, it was the side without the print. And I wrote crumpled letter and I put read me. So she could see the message and she kind of like was, got the gist, like understood that there was something in here. The lady read it. The same lady, she stood up, she walked back into the office, came back a few minutes later, maybe 45 seconds. And he said, the doctor will be with you in just a few minutes. Please have a seat. It's like, what? Like that's what went through my
This
head.
is
I
the
said,
lady that
sure.
cussed you out.
Yeah. And I sit down and I'll never forget it. She goes, that was really clever.
I didn't know you people were so clever.
I guarantee you she did not remember me other than the crumpled letter Dale, right? But before the crumpled letter Dale, I guarantee you she didn't even know who I was. When I walked in that door, she looked at me like I was a brand new person with a brand new problem. And I think that's the one thing that we tend to latch onto as salespeople is we think that everybody knows everything we want. Oh, should I send that email? What if it doesn't land? What if it sucks? Just like, nobody's paying attention, honestly. But again, I think there's two classes of salespeople. There's desperate status quo, incessantly fixated on this idea of I gotta set a meeting, I gotta make money types of salespeople. They're scarcity minded people is really what they are. And then there's salespeople that live in abundance, that are okay with risk, that seek displeasure in moments because they know they learn from failure. They know they learn from trying. They know they learn from experience. And those are the abundance minded people that I love to spend the most time with and be around for sure. I like the other ones too, though. I really do. They can teach you a lot. And then ultimately, I welcome them to the sales rebellion. So if you're listening to this and you think, man, Dale really hurt my feelings, but he nailed me, you're welcome in our circles. We'd love to have you.
And I don't think you need to spend a fortune to stand out. I can buy a trash can for $1.25 from the Dollar Tree, print the paper, and that's going to become much more memorable than something that I just purchased, right? I mean, it's something I've been using for years, and we've got now boxes of trash cans sitting at our office ready to go. We've got multiple versions of the letter too for different industries, different types of personas that I want to send it to. Sometimes I'll write more than actually print, right? Because I wanted to really show them that I hand wrote it. But one thing I like to do too, Dale, is like when I'm going in, especially in front of the receptionist or whoever, if there is one, is crumble it right in front of them and then put it in the trash can and then hand the trash can to the receptionist. Because then the receptionist is like, oh, I'm definitely going to give this to so-and-so. We've had 3 buyers on the podcast here, a couple of our clients, and that was our question to them. A lot of our listeners want to hear about new sales tactics and what buyers want to hear. And all of them just said the same thing, right? When people reach out, they want personalization, know that they know who they are. They want somebody that's different, not doing the status quo, something that everybody else is doing. And humor was one of the common things. Be yourself. Quit being so salesy. Come to me as a person, not as a salesperson. There's actually one guy, Eduardo, he's a client of ours in California, and we were asking him about what stands out. He's like, there's one agency that brought me a sheet cake, but the top of the cake was his business card. He's like, I thought that was super creative. I fed the whole HR department cake. I got the guy's information because it was on the sheet cake. It was his business card. He was like, I don't remember if we're working with them, but I absolutely gave them a meeting. And that was probably the whole goal of the salesperson, was to get that meeting, right? Get in front of him for him to remember who they were so they can get that meeting and truly start building rapport and sharing those value propositions.
The way that I look at that whole instance and that experience is just simply that, and I don't mean this to demean that story, but that the bar is so low in sales that I hear that story and I think that should be the common thing that everybody's doing, right? But this person experiences that and it's the first time it's ever happened. It's literally
Right.
the first time it's ever, I've never gotten a cake with a person's resume. I was like, that's kind of a wild thought that that's never happened or something similar. Right? Something similar
Right.
has never happened. The bar is so low. It really is. It's very low. And it's low because it's easier to just do the job. It's like with anything. Here's a really good example is we have all this access to AI and automation, and the world is completely different now. But there are still people running legacy softwares from 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago that should literally be phased out at this point. This should be gone. But you have people hanging on to this old idea because it's easier to just stay the same, be within the status quo in those moments and not make, oh, but it's going to be $1 million. It costs you $1 million. Sure, it's a heavy expense up front, but additional to that is the ROI that comes with these things. People don't want to do anything other than just dial the phone through automation, email massive amounts of lists of people, hand their resume in. The thought of it just being simple is what makes people feel more comfortable. And comfort is the silent killer of real legacies that people can build and leave, not just for themselves, right? But for others. Like my dad used to say, leave a legacy worth living. And he would say it that way because it wasn't so much about leave a legacy that other people can learn from and love, which is a huge variable, but leave one that you are excited about, that you love, that's worth your time, worth your effort. I think that's a super important thing to think about because if I half-ass something, for lack of a better way to say it, the result will be mediocre is kind of the bottom line. So if I want to build a legacy that's meaningful and impactful to other people, I have to build one that's worth it for myself. And the only way to find that is to step out and do things different, take risks and try and put your resume on a cake for people to eat.
I love it. So you want to let our listeners know how they can get in touch with the Sales Rebellion, find out about Totality, get in touch with you, see your work and the things you're doing for the industry.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that opportunity. So If anybody wants to check us out, salesrebellion.com, thesalesrebellion.com. And we do a lot of stuff. So Casey mentioned he sends letters in the mail. We send those letters for people. That's one of the things we do. We call it Rebel as a Service, or RAS, because we think we're cute and funny. So we help people, for lack of a better way to say it, because I hate this word, by the way, is scale their outbound operation through creative experiences that we give their prospects. Instead of adding a dialer that calls 30,000 people aimlessly a month, it's much more precise outreach. It's much more relationship driven. It's much more emotionally contextual, like we talked about today. And we have all kinds of methods that we use. We also have playbooks. If people just want to DIY this stuff, they can just literally go get a playbook from the Rebel Arcade, do this stuff themselves without any of our help. And ultimately, those playbooks have all the coaching. They have everything you can possibly imagine in them. And then Totality's on there too. Come and hang with us at Totality if you're listening to this. Like, it's worth it. It's $1,300 just about. It includes your hotel and all 3 days of the event. We do a full day's workshop of creative tools and outreach methodology. And then we do 2 days where we have a panel. This year's panel is going to be epic because it's actual sellers. So you'll actually hear on a panel and you'll be able to ask them questions. Sellers that are in the field, selling software, selling HR benefits, selling fintech services, selling equipment and hardware, selling staffing. Who knows? Maybe we'll have somebody actually selling staffing on that. You never know. But there's definitely people from the industry at Totality. And then additionally, you get to run workshops with legends like Darren McKee. We got Benjamin Dennery coming from the UK as well. John Barrows, that man's a legend in the sales world as well. These are people that are going to be running workshops that you'll get access to through that investment. And then you'll experience something you've never experienced before at a conference, I promise you. We built this thing basically as a roller coaster of emotions for people to experience something gamified, non-traditional, that teaches in ways that are not just like, hey, let me write this down, but in very highly interactive ways. I'll give this podcast an exclusive. How's that? People will on day one actually build a contact marketing tool with us, and then they'll mail it from Totality to their prospect. Like, one thing, but it should be fun because especially for people that have never done it before, it'll be really fun. They'll stamp it and stick it in the mail for the first time. Or, and if it's like your 50th, it'll be fun too, because it's like, this one came from Totality kind of thing. So yeah. And if anybody's listening that wants just like the free version of the Sales Rebellion, which we love, just check out our content on LinkedIn. Our company page posts daily. I post daily. To find me is just linkedin.com/IN/copier warrior. I've not gotten rid of my moniker.
And for all the listeners, at minimum, go follow Dale, go follow the Sales Rebellion on LinkedIn, but check him out, man. Check out his website, check out the Sales Rebellion, show them some love. And I appreciate it, Dale. Love this conversation. I've been super excited about having you on here, so I'm glad we could finally make it happen. And as we've talked about, there's a lot of sameness in staffing right now. And this is a much needed challenge for people to rethink how they show up. Just remember, guys, nobody remembers boring. Nobody remembers safe. Nobody remembers generic. They remember wonder. So we appreciate you coming on, Dale. And everybody listening, if this episode made you think differently, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Share it with somebody within your company or within the industry that needs to hear it. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Staffing Made Simple.
This has been an episode of Staffing Made Simple, powered by Simple VMS, the vendor-friendly VMS.